Hey, everybody, put your city and state in the chat for us. Put your city and state in the chat. I see our very own Dr. Keisha Waddell in here. Dr. Keisha, if you want to be on the panel tonight, you know it's an open invitation. Put it in the chat, and I will definitely let you up, Dr. Keisha, because you definitely have probably an opinion or two about this as well. This is the night that we've been talking about for about 6 weeks now. So very exciting topic that we have this evening. Hello, everybody. Hello. I'm going to keep this announcement on the screen as well. Don't forget, if you need your notification about the Bet on Black pitch, you want to text 10K to 202-410-4202. I'm also waiting for our third panelist to come on. How is everybody doing tonight?
Just fine, just fine.
Good. Nice to see everybody here. Dr. Keisha is going to come on in a couple of minutes.
Awesome.
We have
I'm hearing an echo. I'm not sure if it's just my phone or my computer. Anybody else hearing that echo?
I'm not hearing an echo.
Okay. I'm going to log off and log back on then.
Okay, no problem.
Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, I'm in Atlanta, and we have a storm coming through, a pretty bad storm, a tornado touchdown. So if my internet is shaky, then I might have to turn my video off and just be on audio.
Okay, well, you know
Wonderful.
what? We understand, and we will play it by ear over here.
Just stay safe. That's the most important.
I was about to say, and if you
That
see me
is the
pick up
most
and
important
run.
thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Getting all my systems together here. Y'all know how I do it. Don't forget to put your city and state in the chat so we can recognize you. We're so excited to have everybody here this evening for tonight's controversial topic. It's not controversial to us, but seems to be controversial in the world. So we're going to talk about it. This is the anti-school to prison pipeline discussion. Continuation from the discussion we had a few weeks ago, probably about 6 weeks now. So, but we are here today for solutions. We want to welcome everybody. Put your city and state in the chat. I also have YouTube open and Facebook open. So I want to say hello to everybody on those platforms as well. And let's see here. I'm also looking for my third guest, whom I'm not seeing yet. James, if you're here but under another name, then put it in the chat. Otherwise, I'm not seeing you. My third guest. And Dr. Keisha's back here. So we're gonna say hello to her as well. All right, well, it's 6:03, so let's get started, everybody. We want to say hello, California, Canada, Maryland, another California, DC, North Carolina, Tennessee. Is that Alabama, McCalla, Alabama, Raymond? Singapore, hello, April in Singapore. I don't know what time it is, but we thank you for being here. We got Virginia in the house, Suffolk, Virginia, California, Menifee, Baltimore, Boston, Bridgeport, Connecticut, Raleigh, North Carolina, Stafford, Virginia, Charlotte, North Carolina got a warning about a tornado watch as well. So yes, definitely stay safe. We got Virginia Beach, we got Springfield, Illinois, Missouri City, Texas, Augusta, Georgia. We got New Jersey in the house, North Brunswick, Houston, Austell, Georgia, Lithonia, Georgia, Bronx, Texas, another Texas, Georgia, Atlanta, Wharton, New York, Florida, Houston, another Georgia. And YouTube, we have New York, Tennessee, and Florida. We want to say hello to everybody here today. So, welcome to the 10K Project. We are the largest community of small dollar investors who actively fund Black-owned businesses. And when we come together to fund our own businesses, we can profit from our own innovation, we can create jobs in the community, and we can work together to build Black wealth. Investments are as low as $100 per investment. And every Tuesday, we do something called the Bet on Black Pitch, where we invite an entrepreneur to come and to present his or her business to us. And tomorrow night's session is going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. Tawana, as Tawana says, they're all fabulous. But Tawana,
amazing is my word.
Amazing is her word, yes, amazing. Tawana, would you like to tell everybody or give any little hint about tomorrow night?
Tomorrow's founder focuses on children. I'll say that.
All righty then. So, and I got a chance to peek at it, and all I said was, "Ooh, can't wait to see that one." So, but all of them have been, in Tawana's word, amazing. So with that, I do want to remind everybody, if you are not a member, membership is $100 for a lifetime. You'll never be charged for membership again. You can go to the10kproject.com, the10kproject.com, in order to become a member. And if you are not receiving the text messages to alert you about the Bet on Black pitches, we send them out on Mondays and Tuesdays. The Bet on Black pitches every Tuesday at 8 p.m. You can text 10K to 202-410-4202 and get on that list. We ping you about 30 minutes beforehand so that you have time to, get yourself together, get your pen and paper, get to your computer, watch it with the kids on the big screen in your house, whatever it is you choose to do. So,
can I add one thing in, Cherie?
I'm sorry?
Can I add one thing in?
Yeah, sure.
For anyone who's not yet a member and you're still just not sure, you've come a couple of times, you're like, I'm not really sure what this whole Bet on Black thing is about. On 5/11, we're going to allow anyone who just wants to kind of see behind the curtain to come to one of the pitches without being a member. And so if you're in our Facebook group, you'll see I posted a post today with a Google form where you can share your email information with us, and we'll send you a special invite. That would only be to the 5/11 pitch. So that's not tomorrow, but next Tuesday's pitch. Just if you want to see, because you just want to, needed to see a little more before you actually invest the $100 for the lifetime membership. So that was something we decided to do. So I'm super excited about that. So again, you're in the Facebook group. If you're not yet in the Facebook group, join the Facebook group. It is the Black 10K Project. No, not the Black. It's just Black, right? It's a Black 10K Project.
It's Black 10K Project in the Facebook group. Yes.
Facebook group.
Black 10K Project. Yes. So, all righty then. Well, I don't see the final panelist thus far. Maybe he will come. But for now, I want to talk a little bit tonight about anti-school to prison pipeline. I want to kind of lay a foundation for what we're going to talk about. I'm going to introduce our guest here and let them introduce themselves. And then we have a couple of questions. And tonight's conversation is meant to be very interactive with the community. So let me first of all lay the groundwork that this idea came about because of the young man in Baltimore who had a 0.13 GPA. He was in the middle of his class. His mother had no idea that he was having trouble in school, and she thought he was graduating this month, and instead he has to start the 9th grade over. And there was, some discussions on social media with regards to this. And we decided to put together this panel tonight, not to litigate the problem. We all know there's a problem, right? We don't need to, all sorts of, you know what, let me just keep it positive. We're not going to litigate the problem. Instead, we want to focus on how do we provide some solutions from an investor point of view and from an entrepreneur point of view? Because that's the point of the 10K project. So I already prepped my my guest with the 2 questions that we're going to start with. The first is, what kind of businesses can we start and invest in as a 10K project that can help with the literacy rates within our youth, ages 0 through 8? Because if they cannot read by 8 years old, there are some statistics that we'll go through with regards to the chances of them being incarcerated or not living up to their potential. So that's question number 1. And then question number 2 is, there's a shortage of STEM workers, healthcare workers, and blue collar workers. And I have some statistics on that. So what can we do as entrepreneurs and investors to help with that? What kind of businesses can we start, buy, and grow in order to help with that? That helps our kids from ages 9 to ages 21. So we want to figure out tonight some real solutions with regards to that baby 0 birth all the way through 21. And are we going to get it all fixed tonight? No. However, we want to have that conversation from this point of view. And I have to admit, I haven't seen it held from this point of view. So with that, Tawana, I didn't give you a real chance to introduce yourself if you wanted to be able to do that as my co-founder.
Yes, so my name is Tawana Rivers. I am the co-founder here at the 10K Project, and always happy when you guys show up to see us and to learn from us. And I'm super excited about tonight's conversation. I am conflicted because the mama bear comes out in me and wants to jump. And so I'm gonna reel it in tonight because we're not litigating. So I'm glad you said that. This is definitely a necessary conversation. So I am glad we're approaching it from a different angle.
Yeah, and we would approach it from a 10K point of view. So the first guest that we have tonight is Glenice. And Glenice was introduced to us by another 10K project member, Chantel. So shout out to Chantel if she's here tonight. But Glenice is currently in Baltimore, and she owns a successful daycare and early learning business. So that's where she's coming from with regards to those types of businesses that she has. So Glenice, would you like to introduce yourself?
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very excited to be a part of the conversation, and I will be officially joining tonight the 10K Project. So thank you again, and to my sorority sister Chantel for the invitation. I've been operating licensed childcare centers for 17 years in Baltimore City, and I began honestly as a babysitting service. And then I understood the work that I was doing and the impact that it was having on Baltimore City and our children. And so over time, we turned into an official licensed childcare program, providing quality enrichment opportunities for kids within Baltimore City. We've served about 7,000 kids over the last 17 years with pre-K programs, before and after school programs, school-age programs, summer camp, the whole gamut of opportunities for young people. We also merged in 2014 and opened our nonprofit second arm, Smart Steps Youth Services, in which we wanted to provide free access to quality programming for young people whose parents did not qualify for childcare vouchers or other ways to allow them to participate in our programs. In 2019, and this is perfect as we have this conversation about this pipeline and the work that we can do. As we continue to focus intently on family and community engagement, we understood that a large number of our families and our children were dealing with childhood trauma, and substance abuse within their families. And all of those factors were affecting them and their success as students and as persons in our programs. And so we opened another arm, Center for Youth and Families, that provides behavioral health support. So we're working to eliminate the stigma of mental health. We're working to eliminate the disease of addiction and understand ways in which we can support recovery, because all of these things help our kids. So this conversation is awesome for us to be a part of, understanding that all of these factors impact our young people and how they're able to acquire information, retain information, because everything in their life affects who they are and how they're able to grasp what's being offered to them. So thank you for the opportunity to participate.
Absolutely, and thank you for being here. The second person that we have is Karima, who is a 10K Project member, and I was most attracted to her because she is a mother of 6. So that's Karima. She's also a former Maryland public school teacher and the founder of the GeniusSchool.org, a decentralized, democratic, self-directed learning network of micro schools launching in person and virtually across the country this fall. So Karima, welcome.
Thank you all so very much. It is such a privilege to be with all of you. And I am not a member yet, but like my friend Glenise said, I will become one this evening.
Oh, you better, because we put it out there.
I am so glad to be with you. Very briefly, I began my educational career at the national treasure called Morgan State University right there in Baltimore. And I began teaching in Maryland. And then when I became a mom, I knew that I wanted this large family. And so I became a stay-at-home mom, which means that shortly after that, I became a homeschool mom because my oldest was, check this out, it's perfect for what we're talking about. My oldest son learned how to read at 4. He was just one of those kids that came here pre-wired for reading. At that time in Baltimore City, no 4-year-old, even if they were about to be 5 in December, were allowed to test to enter public school. So that's how we began homeschooling. I did a really good job of recreating school in my home, so much so that I burnt myself out. And I burnt out my kids. And in that process, I discovered something amazing that I never knew before called unschooling or delight-driven learning or self-directed learning. And as a result of that experience, that's exactly what I want to create for other parents and other students, is based upon a new paradigm shift for the parent-child relationship. And these schools allow children to learn at their own pace. So I'm so excited to delve into the conversation. Dr. K, it's good to see you. I know we've had talks before. And thanks.
Likewise.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks again for the platform.
Yes.
Absolutely. Dr. Keisha, for any of you OGs around here, needs no introduction from Detroit. Special education teacher, entrepreneur, and just, one of our dear friends, definitely 10K Project member, because I know that. Because her name is on the roster. Dr. Keisha, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, well, thanks for that brief introduction already. But yes, I am excited about this conversation too, because I'm telling you, I've been the ear of my parapros and anybody else in my school district who will listen to me anytime we talk about exactly the things we're really going to get to, the root of the things that we're going to get to here. Anybody who deals with students, children, if you're about learning and see how true learning goes, because there's a difference between teaching and learning. So, you'll have a real, you'll be able to connect with this, whether you have children or not, truth be told, because everybody's a learner. We're all learning. We recently just gone through this pandemic situation that's put all of us on the same plane in terms of learning and making shifts that are necessary. And really, it's the 21st century way to learn unlearn, relearn. So I'm sure we'll get into it. So let's go.
Yeah, and as someone who is not a parent, because I'm not one, it affects me too, because if the younger generation cannot read, cannot write, if they're unemployed chronically, if they are not living up to their potential because they are employed, but they're not doing something that matches their gift and what they're capable of, that affects us as older people as well. Who's going to be the nursing assistant taking care of you, and who's going to be, defending the country, and all of those things that we think of as well. So I think it's important for us to talk about this as a community, no matter whether we're parents or not, no matter where we are in our walk of life. So one of the things that I discovered in my research is, of course, there is a connection between literacy rates and the incarceration rates. And there's a statistic that shows if a student is not reading at his or her grade level by the end of the third grade, they are 4 times less likely to graduate high school on time. Plus, high school dropouts were 63 times more likely to be incarcerated than college graduates. 63 times, okay? How can we as entrepreneurs and investors tackle this challenge? What skills should we set up to capture kids ages 0 through 8 and prep them for success? Again, thinking from an entrepreneurial point of view, and things that we can invest in as the community. What do we need to start? What are the gaps there? And again, with my 3 guests here, you all are seeing this every day. What are the gaps that's missing in the system that we really need to consider? And I'll open it up to anybody on the panel.
I'll start. Great question. I think when you're looking at reading levels at the third grade level, we have to start way before the third grade level and making sure that we're preparing our young people for early literacy and preparing them so that their reading levels can soar. And that begins with access to quality early childhood educational programs way before they even step foot in the school. But that also means arming their parents with the tools that they need to be able to share with their kids at home. Hearing about Miss Akila, I'm a mother of 5 and I have 2 grandkids, and I'm spending a lot of my time with my grandkids reading constantly. I mean, every opportunity to learn has to be available. From an entrepreneurial standpoint, we need to invest in programs that target parents, especially parents within the inner city that have not had exposure to some of those things previously. And then we also need to look at what our parents' experiences have been in the educational system. Because lots of times, if a parent had a negative experience for themselves in school, then they may not be equipped with the tools that they need or even understand what their rights are as a parent to be actively involved in an educational setting for their children to get the supports that they need. As an early child care provider, we need to be able to invest in professional development for our team members so that we can early on be able to explain to them the hierarchy of need that our students have, be able to explain to them the things that are affecting students so that they can be better able to support our young people. So I think it begins with supporting our parents very early on. Many parents from the African American community, from Baltimore City, the inner city itself, and arming them with access to quality programs. Sometimes that means funding programs itself. Sometimes it means funding parents directly. There are funds available for parents to participate or their kids to participate in licensed childcare programs based on where they are financially. But if a parent is not in school, if a parent is not working, they automatically disqualify from access to federal funds that are available. So it's about getting our parents engaged in programs so that their kids can then qualify for scholarships, or investing in parents who may not be in an educational program now, may not be in a work program now, so that their kids, those are the main ones who need access to quality programs, and too often they're pushed to the side because they don't meet their requirements, when in essence they need it more than anyone else. And I was kind of all over the place, but there's so many things that we can do early on to expose our families, our parents, and our children to quality care so that they can then prepare their children early on to build their access to early literacy and constantly understand that everything they do, the kids are sponges and sucking it all up, but they have to wet those sponges every single day.
I'll open it up to one of the other panelists. What do you all think?
Yeah, I'd want to add to, I definitely want to echo the whole idea of having two-generation education programs and policies to support what really needs to happen in any kind of educational system, whether it's formal or informal. I think a lot of times too, part of the problem is that we see things as being linear, and it really isn't a linear process. Those teachable moments, those families who feel like, oh, we don't have a library available to us, or different things like that. The truth be told is that a lot of learning goes on in informal settings anyway. I mean, even as you're an adult. And I work more with the adolescents to adult age students at the high school level. And truly, the truth be told, the support that they need at this point, I would say, is the soft skill development. And particularly the just generation in particular. Soft skill development is key for keeping, retaining, getting a job, so that's one thing. And then it also can impact their personal relationships, as well as potentially, find themselves incarcerated or not, if they're able to regulate their reactions to things, so that, more than just the academics, straight ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, and all of that. It really needs a foundation of soft skill development so they can endure and persevere, because learning is a process and it's hard, anyway, but I'm sure the other panelists can attest to what I'm saying with regard to the foundation being teachable moments at any time and soft skills development.
Now, let me hop in right there, because Dr. K, you already know.
I already know.
But those teachable moments that we talk about, a solution to the literacy concern, especially as children are taught to read in schools. The reason that schools teach reading the way that they do is because they have to perform this process in the masses. And so a solution could be just to do away with that altogether, and instead to invest in a micro network of learning communities where, number one, we talk about, I took some notes to prepare for today's talk. And so when you guys were talking about skills training is based on the talent and the interests of the person. So you first find out what this person is. Who are they, right? What's already naturally inside of you, and then you build upon that. In our school system currently, we can't do that. Teachers want to do it, but they are not allowed to do it because of the nature of the system. So you do away with that system, and in its place, you create one that allows the child to be the curriculum. The word curriculum comes from a Latin root word, which simply means the course or the guide or the way. And so what has happened is we have these very intelligent intellectuals that sat in a room somewhere and wrote down the guide for your child. They've never met your child. They don't know that grandma just died last week and your child is sad. They don't know that, mom had to work 3, 4 jobs and therefore now you are tired because you had to get you up, basis up, wake up somebody else in order to get to school, right? They don't understand that you had to cross the busy street of North Avenue or Liberty Heights in Baltimore to walk yourself and your little brother to school and your cousin. So instead, we follow this guide that has never met these children. And we put these kids in this one size fits all, and we expect them all to ingest the same content, pour it out at the same rate in the same way. And that needs to change. And so the way we change that is we create a decentralized version that does away with that and places the child at the root of that. So now we can look at a child and figure out what are their interests. First of all, what do you want to read about? Number two, how do you want to learn? So out of my 6 kids, I told you guys that my first one came here already with this pre-bent towards reading, if you will. He was fluent by the time he was 4. So, you know, as a parent, you think, all right, what happened for the goose is good for the gander. What happened for the first one, we're going to do for the second one. Okay, baby girl, come on, let's go, let's read. And she said, mm-mm. And I knew something was wrong when girlfriend, we were doing Hooked on Phonics, y'all. Okay, I took it back. You know, and if you know anything about teaching a young child how to read, have mercy for the sentence, the fat cat sat on the mat. That was the sentence, all right? The fat cat sat on the mat. Baby girl sat down and tried to sound out the word the. That's when I said, oh, right, something's going on here. We have a problem, honey. Okay. Then when and I knew something was happening when she tried to read, when she read a word backwards. And my training said, okay, let's go see what's going on. So I had her tested. And when you test for there to be some type of learning difference in the world of language, first they have to test for IQ. And I want you to hear me clearly. The IQ test showed that she had an above average IQ. She tested with a high IQ in the visual spatial relationship. So they have to do that so that they know what the baseline is, what to expect. Then they gave the baby girl that same old fat cat sat on the mat sentence, and they said, yes, she is presenting with what appears to be dyslexia. Perfect. Now I knew what I'm working with. But I'm gonna tell one on myself. I was shocked that she tested with that high IQ, but I shouldn't have been. Because if I again look at her talents, she was always gifted when it came to visual spatial relationships. She always was one. She said, Mom, I want to design cars. She's a little girl, right? 6 years old, telling me she wanted to design cars. I said, oh, okay. But that is in alignment with who she is. Do you hear me? And so for her, fluency did not come when she was at the end of 4th grade. Fluency for her did not come till she was 12. And even then she struggled as a dyslexic learner. But because she was learning in an environment that did not force her to consume this one-size-fits-all diet and did not force her to output in this one-size-fits-all way, she was able to flourish. So in high school, she was able to take dual enrollment classes. And she now is enrolled in college, pursuing a degree that is in perfect alignment with who she is. She wants to be an interior designer, right? So she's not yet designing cars. She'll move to that. But a solution to this problem that investors and entrepreneurs can for sure sink your teeth in is creating a network of a different type of school that allows children to first identify, who are you? What lights you up on the inside? What do you want to read about? And then what's inside of you that we can lean in. Reading might not be your thing, right? But in a different environment, we can allow all students to flourish. And so that's my suggestion for a solution to that. Throw the pipeline away. The word pipeline is just a conveyor, right? What I'm saying is start with the child and place them right in a real world situation and figure out, who are you?
Karima, I love that. And I think there's a piece of that also. When you go to the child, because there oftentimes is so much trauma, we've got to peel back some of that to figure out who they really are, right? Because they're dealing with so much, they may not know there's that beautiful butterfly inside, right? So we've got to really take almost taking them, first of all, identifying the environments that they're in, right? First, and then providing them with the tools they need to navigate whatever that world is they're in, because there's so many different scenarios that could be, right?
Absolutely.
But if we don't do that, then they'll never be able to see that they are anything. And I think that's part of the issue, you know, and so programs that enrich the child. I was actually talking to a 10K member yesterday, and her name is Eugenia Miller, and she has a program that she's starting called Prep for Life, where she's truly going into middle schools And she is enriching the lives of these children and trying to get them to believe that they are somebody so that they can aspire to that generational wealth we're all talking about now, right? Why not start that conversation so much earlier so that they have a better chance of success? And it's first of all, it's backing entrepreneurs like that are trying to make a difference in the early child's life. And then, you know, and not giving up, staying with it, right? Not letting it be the flavor of the month, like sticking with the funding, making sure it's happening. A lot of times these kids just need somebody to tell them you can. And I know that sounds a little, you know, hokey, but it's the truth. You know, they just need someone to say you matter, you can, you're beautiful. You know, those things mean so much in the life of a child struggling with so many things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Also,
Oh,
No, go ahead.
I also want to say, just look, it's exposure, 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 exposure. So some of our kids have not been exposed, and that's the reason why they don't know yet that they want to read this book. They don't know yet that they want to learn about this new thing. So we try to do like little mini units and just an aftercare, just little mini units in which they're exposed to everything, but we infuse it with literacy in a way they don't even know it's there. So we're having cooking club where they're learning about different types of foods and how they can do things healthily and how they can spend less money at home and come up with some really good menus. But we're incorporating literacy just through the menu itself and them putting the menu together and looking through cookbooks. We have some kids that don't like science but love STEM and aftercare. I'm like, why? What's the difference? The difference is it's different. So we spent we lost last year. The year before last, I went and got every empty box I can find in the whole wide world. I think I brought everybody to Hall and Walmart. And literally the kids went from just exposure, okay, kids that were shy, that weren't as engaged previously. We took that and had them make blueprints and then make box forts in the centers, and they would run to aftercare in the afternoon. So you're learning science, you're learning math skills, you're learning how to measure, you're doing interior decorating, because they put all kinds of decorations in the fort. They were gorgeous. I have to show. We had MTV cribs in the end. So we then exposed them to videography and photography. They did whole tours of their box forts. It was a huge competition across the city. We had 7 locations doing it simultaneously. So it gave them an opportunity. They were learning, they were reading, they were working on communication skills. They were self-advocating. They were making the list of materials that they needed. It's about exposure and doing things different than what the normal traditional school system should look like. So I think that kind of mirrors some of the things that the other presenter was saying. You have to think outside of the box to expose our kids to something different so they'll be pumped about it. And then as a result, their parents are coming like, what's going on? They don't want to leave today. Come on in and play this project with us or do this project with us. And then those same parents who hated science in school, who couldn't, quote, help their kids in with their homework, are now coming in to do STEM and realizing, hold up, STEM is kind of cool. I can make some money off of this. And then we're turning that into that. Now let's look at jobs that you can get into and career paths that are now related to this project. We went from building box forts to box cards. So you have to be creative in how we are exposing this demographic that may not have had the same exposure as other groups have had. And we can do that with just being creative. So it wasn't a matter of having tons of fun. Literally, I was getting boxes out the grocery store too, but it was about thinking outside the box. We incorporated STEM without them even science and literacy, without them even realizing it. That required family and community engagement. I think the parents at home to think about what things can you donate, what scraps do you have that we can use. It's about making it fun. If learning is fun, our kids don't even realize they're learning, and they run to it. They run to it and want to share what they've learned. And then also we talk about soft skills. How are they communicating? So we're teaching the soft skills while we're doing the other activities. You have to infuse it and think about things different. You have to think outside of the box if you want to get people to get outside of the box. And so we've done things like, and I'm saying this for things we've done in our program, but these are things we can invest in across the board. We can invest in programs that are doing things different. We can give them tools in which to do things differently. We can provide quality PD and technical assistance for small programs who don't have tons of funds, but teach them how to use the thrift store and the Goodwill in order to get the things that they need to teach their kids. Parents can be at home and may not have a college degree, but it doesn't mean they can't teach the heck out of their kids. It doesn't mean that they can't, while they are sorting their clothes, when they're washing their clothes, you're teaching a math skill. You're teaching colors, you're teaching shapes. There's so many things you can do, but that's about teaching teaching our parents how to teach their kids, and then in turn teaching their kids how to teach their parents. Because then the parents come into the events that we can offer, in which the kids are now explaining to the parent, this is what I've learned, this is what I'm doing. It's increasing their self-esteem. They're able to describe what they've done, so they're increasing their communication skills, and it's exposing them to something different. And then you marry that with, let's take a trip to an engineering business, let's take a trip to a different business. As business owners, if we open up our businesses and allow people to come in, run tours, have special days, not just bring your child to work day, bring your community to work day. What things can we do to show and expose our young people, our African-American kids in the inner city, Baltimore, like everybody else, needs that help. When we talk about that parent and what we saw on the news about this ninth grader or this 12th grader that needs to be in ninth grade, how many things were missed between ninth and 12th? And what ways we empower our parents that are working multiple jobs, that are just overwhelmed? How can we arm them with the tools that they need? And how can we let them understand their right as a parent to speak to the school anytime they want, to walk in the building outside of COVID, anytime they want, so that they can ensure that their kids have the tools that they need. They can't advocate for their child if they haven't been told they have a right to do so. And so all of those things come into play. So it's definitely a multi-level approach that we need to take. And it will take all of us to do that, whether it be providing supplies, whether it is offering some free trainings, whether it's bringing people into your business, allowing small centers and childcares and schools to offer trips to Black-owned businesses so they can see those things in action. All of those pieces are important in order for us to stop this pipeline. It goes all the way back to how many kids are getting suspended from pre-K. Like, what are we doing? What can we do differently? How can we arm our pre-K teachers to understand the behaviors, where they're coming from, what's happening behind the behavior? It's funny, it's right here. My grandson, every time, he's 2, every time he does something wrong, he goes to get the book, The Bad Seed, because we're gonna talk about the bad seed. What's behind the behavior? What are you trying to tell me, Nasia? He's like, bad seed? Yeah, bad seed. Let's talk about why you made that choice. But that's real. Like, why are they making the decisions that they're making? And then if we start to look at those environmental factors that are affecting our young people, then we can look at them differently, and as a result, expose them to more. Someone in the chat box asked about money for childcare and how they can have access to funding. There's tons of funding for quality childcare programs, tons of it that are not being used, specifically in Baltimore City. I don't know how to acquire it in other states, but in Maryland, moneyforchildcare.com, childcare.com. If families would get onto that website, you can apply for childcare vouchers, and your child can be enrolled in a quality childcare program in the state of Maryland. There are tons of them, and these funds are not being used at the levels they should because our people don't know about them. So we have to share information simultaneously. And I'll give the floor back to.
So I want to bring it back a little bit to the entrepreneur and investor point of view and how we can start thinking about this. So we've heard a lot of great ideas, and I'll give another one that I actually wrote a business plan for. And I do think that there is a way for us to not only create businesses that do good, but businesses that are profitable as well. So, when Glenyce talked, for example, about different things that you can do, there are parents that are probably looking for that type of education that either the parent could potentially pay for or the government could potentially pay for, and we as a group of investors could potentially profit from that. We invest in the business, we get it up and running, we get a proposal writer or, get a lobbyist out there to go and get those funds for us. And, anything is possible depending on who's going to take up the torch and actually do that and lead that business. I will say I wrote a business plan for a woman years ago I called it Adventures in Reading. So I named the program for her. But she came to me and she said, I want to do this program where I take kids over the summertime and we go to historical landmarks throughout Virginia, because she was in Virginia. And when we get there, the kids read something or they reenact something. So it could be a battle, it could be slave quarters, it could be anything. And the kids are actually able to read. So because she wanted to solve the issue of kids not reading over the summer, but make it edutaining as well. So the kids would read as they were in that place, and then they would have the experience as well as having read for that day, whatever it is that she was going to have them read. So, these are businesses that can be started, they can be franchised. I heard somebody say, oh, that's in Baltimore, but what happens in Atlanta? What happens in other states? Now you start thinking about how do we create things that can be franchised, that can be nationwide, and that could potentially have revenue streams for them as well. Because I think if we're able to have that perfect blend, then we are able to do things that will help future generations as well. And I also will say I had not thought about educating the parents as well as the as well as the students until you had mentioned that. So I thank you so much, because it hadn't occurred to me. But you're right, not all parents had great school environments. And sometimes we think that the parents just don't value school, but maybe it's because they didn't have a great school environment, or there are other things that are happening at home, or things like that. So
and sometimes the kids' work is just hard. I mean, let's not minimize that. Sometimes it's just complicated, and it's like, why'd they say it like that? Why didn't they say it like this? And baby, I don't know what they're asking you to do. I mean, I've been that mom where I had those experiences, and I was a great student. So it wasn't even about that. It was about, this question doesn't make any sense. Now, luckily for me, there was a homework hotline when I was raising my son, right? He's 34 years old, so he's older. But there was no internet, but thank God for the homework hotline, or we wouldn't have made it.
Now you got Khan Academy, thank God.
It was just complicated. Like, I think Karima kind of hit on it, along the lines of, do they even like reading that book? Is that example fit for my kid, right? Is the question you're asking and how you're asking it, can my child relate to that based on where we come from?
That's right.
Oftentimes that was problematic.
Yeah, that's right. And I want to touch on is it Cherie? Am I pronouncing your name correctly? You said it perfectly. Investors and entrepreneurs can invest in creating a system that is global. What I'm building with the Genius School is a decentralized network of these micro schools. Right now, we're beginning with license agreements for anyone who wants to have a Genius School in your backyard. You can have one. And I had someone call me from Mexico City, Mexico yesterday. I had someone call me from Alberta, Canada. Y'all, I had someone call me from New Zealand.
Awesome. Tremendous.
Right. Now, I'm here in Atlanta. And so what it is that I see to do because of the pandemic, the climate has shifted. Parents are now, because we had a whole year of your baby sitting right there in your face, what you thought was so, because you sent them away to school. No. Now they're right here in your face. So now the climate has completely changed. The market has changed. And so if we're looking at solving a problem for a group of customers who will gladly pay, what I'm inviting investors and entrepreneurs to do is to reconsider who the customer is. So I'm saying reconsider, instead of it being the parent or even the market that these children will graduate and go into as the customer, let's make the child the customer. Now you might be wondering, well, how will a child gladly pay? Well, they're paying with their time. Children are in school how many hours out of the day?
Exactly.
35 hours a week, right? And so if we put the child as the main customer, and then we say to them, what would you like to do? Better yet, here you are, you get to create it. So what I'm inviting investors to do is to look at these democratic micro schools that invite students to, number one, create the rules for your school. So now I don't have to fight you to follow the rule. No, you created the rule, and you and your peers help to enforce that rule. Number two, what do you want to do today? What do you want to learn? What lights you up on the inside? And Glenise said it perfectly. That example that you gave when your children, you guys were building things, you made a maker space in your early childhood center. And so what I'm inviting investors to do is to invest in these maker spaces that are all across the country, that during the daytime, children utilize with their parents during the daytime, of course, COVID bearing. And then in the evenings and weekends and summers, it doubles as something for the community. And then someone in the chat was talking about standards, right? How do we meet a standard? How do we create balance for our children to read the book that you're interested in, but then you still have a standard to reach? We do that the same way any industry would do it. What is your standard? I have 6 kids. Out of those 6 kids, one is going to be a farmer. He graduates this year. Can you imagine what the standard for him should be? The other one is going to be an engineer. The standard for him is different. What he has ingested and fed himself is different. Then I have an artist. She's an amazing artist. And Glenice, if she were in your early childhood community, you would have saw her as an 18-month-old holding the pencil correctly with those fine motor skills and doodling and drawing. And when I saw that at 18 months old, I said, that girl's an artist. And so I began putting paintbrushes in her hand and she began painting. She is amazing. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a mom. But what is the standard that she needs to meet as an artist? And so now if we take the example of that young man in Baltimore, he's very similar to a young man that I am working with down here in Atlanta. I asked his mom, I said, when was the last time that this child met with success? And she said, kindergarten. This child is now 13 years old. The last time he met with academic success was kindergarten, simply because who he is, he doesn't fit in this box called school. For kids who do well in school, you all keep going. But for those that don't, if you don't fit in this box, my number 3 kid needed to move. That is the pathway of knowledge into his brain. As he got older, I would let him roll on the floor. Talk about literacy. I made 3x5 cards. My daughter was dyslexic, so therefore I had to learn Orton Gillingham practices. That's something else that entrepreneurs and investors can invest in, right? Centers that teach people how to use Orton Gillingham. But my son would roll back and forth on the floor, and then he would pause and he would read the word. He would run up and down the steps and get the word, retrieve the words off the steps in order to build a sentence. They can't do that in school. I couldn't do it when I was a teacher in school. You don't have the time. You don't have the space. You have 35 kids in your classroom. You don't have the bandwidth to do that. So invest in opportunities that put the customer, the child, at the front of the equation. That's something that investors can consider.
And Karima, you bring up,
go ahead, Dr. Keisha, go
oh,
ahead.
I was just going to say, Karima, you brought up what I was going to talk about, which is really the whole idea of a new business model for training teachers in a new way. You know, pre-service teachers don't get this kind of training. We get the standard kind of stuff. And then it's just like what we do with our students. We go through all the theory in school, then you get into the real school, and then you really see what's really going on, you know, which is really why I went into special ed to start with. But, you know, education is my second career. And that's when I was there. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't just teach reading, writing, and arithmetic. I need a whole wraparound service situation in here, you know, so I can even get to that. So that is another business model that could benefit from some support, is training teachers in this new way to be facilitators of information and creating and situating learning experiences so that these kinds of revelations can come about from each of our true client, which is indeed our student.
Now, before people go on, I want to dive into our second question, because we're not going to have enough time to get to it.
This question, I think this is another business idea. It's also investing in training for the parents. So we talk about educating the parents. Karima just talked about identifying the skill set of her child based on how she held a pencil. Parents need to learn how to do that. What should we be looking for, right? Some of us are looking for the wrong thing to identify that skill set and where they may need help versus where they're already excelling. So I think that could be another business opportunity to build those programs that train what to look for.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And okay, so then let's talk about our kids that are ages 9 to 21. And this is audience participation time. Audience, just put a 1 in the chat if you're listening. This is audience participation time. And yeah, we're going to get her to give her contact information. Don't worry. Perfect. All right. Y'all are listening. Good. Okay. So there are 1.5 million well-paying computing jobs unfilled every year in the United States, which is a $500 billion opportunity. All right, 1.5 million well-paying computer jobs. And many of you may not know this, but the immigration is occurring where now they are immigrating people from, are bringing in immigrants from India primarily to fill these positions. So our kids can't even compete for a lot of these positions, okay? Now, if you think that everything is just white collar, you're wrong. Blue collar is another area of opportunity for our kids ages 9 through 21 to start getting into. So here's the question of the evening. How many diesel mechanics will be needed in the next few years in order to replace retired workers? So by 2022, it says here, how many diesel mechanics? Does anyone want to guess? Yeah, and Donna, yes, that's right. That's the H-1B visas, yes. Charlene, did you see my notes? Charlene saw my notes. Some sort of,
You gave me
to the email that I wrote. Yes, Charlene, 67,000. 67,000. These are just diesel mechanics. We're not talking about HVAC, plumbers, electricians, general contractors, etc. So a lot of times we think only about, you know, prepping our kids for cybersecurity jobs and the high-tech jobs, or engineers, doctors, lawyers, but some of our kids don't fit into that. Some of our kids fit in the trade school way, and they can make as much money, if not more money, with less debt. You know, somebody had mentioned about the college debt in here as well. So we have opportunities all around. My question is this: what kind of skills training can we give to our kids ages 9 through 21? And thinking about it in terms of investors, entrepreneurs, what can we do to prepare our kids to actually compete in the world, you know, over the next decade? I'm going to open it up to anybody that is on the panel.
Invest in an incubator and an accelerator for students. If we think about what an incubator and an accelerator do, invest in an incubator for our younger ones as they come to do projects, you know, like Lenise mentioned, where we figure out, okay, what do I love? What do you do well that you would enjoy and be proud of? Invite them to do that, right? In these micro schools, that's what we're able to do at the Genius School. And then when you get to the end of that, play turns into projects. So when they're little and they're playing, that play turns into projects. So my guy that's going to be an engineer, one of the ones that could possibly fill one of those jobs, I saw when he was little, he was constantly building things, constantly, you know, paying close attention to the fine details of something, constructing and then taking things apart, right? Incubation time. Now he is 15. He is teaching himself C++, Python, Arduino. I tell him all the time, please just don't have Homeland Security show up at my door. Okay, please don't do that. Whatever you program it, just don't do that. So he wants to be an electrical engineer. So he's teaching himself circuits. Now, in a self-directed micro network of schools, remember I said kids are in school 35 hours a week. Can you imagine if you could be hyper-focused like that during your years of middle school and high school, where you get to go deep and go as deep as you want in your passions, and the community around you supports you. So we'll bring in those mechanics, we'll bring in those blue collar workers, and we'll identify through the app that we use that documents as self-directed learners learning backed by blockchain. We'll bring in those people and we'll be able to say, oh, look, out of this community, we have about 20 students that will probably go into a blue collar field. Make that connection right there in middle and high school. and begin being in the adult world instead of waiting until you're 18, 19 to delve into that world. So skills training, again, is targeted by allowing a kid to pursue their interests. We first got to figure out who you are. That's one thing I want to be very careful of. I remember back in the 90s, as I was raising my kids, there was this push, of course, for STEM. And that's great for those who are STEM-based people. I ain't one of them. Unless you put the A in there for art, I might be able to get with you on some art. Okay, but don't ask me to program code, not a thing, all right? But for my children and other people that are, then of course you can make that connection at an early age. So again, invest in an incubator and accelerator for kids. Invest in something that allows us to figure out who is this kid, and that's what we're building with the Genius School.
Sorry. I would say also as entrepreneurs, we need to hire our young people. We need to bring in interns at the elementary, middle, and high school level. You can have some kids come into your business and actually see the work happening. In Baltimore City, they have a summer youth works program. For 6 weeks, I believe it is, each summer, they hire or they pay employers, or they pay the salaries of teenagers between 14 and 21 to work for 6 weeks. There are not enough employers, especially minority employers, that are bringing these kids in. Take in one that the city is paying for, and we need to hire one too. If every single employer hires one and gives them access to that information, understanding they come in with little and giving them a lot by the time they leave. Again, it's about exposure. It's about investing in programs that give them access to that, whether it be summer programs or training programs for them, after school programs that will just expose our kids to this new area. Because if there's this shortage here, there's no reason why we should be going out of the country to bring these persons in. When we have people here that we have some kids that are in aftercare that have behavioral concerns throughout the school day. But we don't see those in aftercare because it's a different type of a setting. They're able to then go in and build that fort. They're able to go in and then do that arts and crafts project or that STEM project, because the requirement is not for them to read aloud in front of everyone if they don't feel comfortable with that, but it's for them to pair with someone else who's good at that and them to work together as a team. So when the environment is different, we find that those kids that aren't soaring during the day soar in the afternoon because the environment is different. It's about that exposure and understanding that, but it goes back again to, what are we telling their parents? What do they know about what their child has the right to have access to? And as we, as business owners and entrepreneurs, are we then giving back to persons that look like us in the community that we know need access to this information, just the exposure in itself? So you may not be the STEM person, but it doesn't mean that your child isn't the STEM person. It doesn't mean that your child might not even realize that they're the STEM person. And sometimes putting that A in there, putting that STEM in there, I would have probably had you over there building the fort, just decorating the inside of the fort with the art stuff. But by the time you finish, you would have made that blueprint. Yes, you would have and loved it. But it's about getting excited about it. But that means professional development for our team members, so that we as adults understand what we're giving off to the kids. And I know you just said to us, but we can't say to our kids, well, I didn't like that in school. So, it's about teaching our kids something different by first teaching their parents and investing in programs that support the parents and children. So even if you're having training programs for adults, you can do them together. You know how they have make and take days for parents and kids? You can pull the parents to the side and talk to them about their skill set and how important it is for them to work on engagement intentionally, while also exposing their young people to new arenas and new avenues. So investing in training, encouraging entrepreneurs to at least hire one person at their company, even if it's for 6 weeks. On average, these kids make about $1,100 a summer. That's a heck of a lot of money for a child who has to buy school clothes for the next school year. And it gets them to stay focused on you for 6 weeks, and you have all day to share that information. And many times those same kids will come back to you year after year as they're building their resumes as they go through, so they're better prepared as adults. So a 9-year-old, our 2, 3, and 4-year-olds can do the same thing with exposure to, developmentally appropriately, of course, but exposure to these areas. But we have to be intentional in how we share information and how we present opportunity to them.
I want to add to that too. Oh,
No,
sorry.
no, you go ahead, Dr. K.
Well, I just wanted to add that all this great stuff we're talking about, a lot of times that's the ideal situation to be able to have employers who are able to bring students in and that kind of thing. But we can always leverage technology. I'm telling you, this phone we have in our hand right here, that will get you in front of all types of professionals. And again, we can put the onus on the child, so that it's not trying to bring adults in or who are pushing against, or they're, we're spending just too much time with all that. Have the student find the thing that they're interested in, and then we can leverage technology to bring exactly what they need so that they can be implicitly and explicitly taught, what it is they're interested in doing in the way that we're talking about too.
Absolutely. Glenyce, you reminded me of the junior school is no different than any other self-directed school. They are all across the country. You have Sudbury schools, you have Agile Learning Centers, but we have something that's very unique. We have our 5 pillars, and pillar 5 does exactly what you said. My thought was, how can we close the return on investment gap in education? We dump money into a student, K through 12, and we hope and pray and a wish that as they go off and launch into the world, that they will become productive citizens that somehow will contribute to society as a whole. But that environment that raised them, those schools that they went to, we don't exactly know what this particular child that graduated from this elementary school, this middle school, this high school, right here in West Baltimore, West Philly, where I'm from, West Atlanta, where I am now, we don't exactly know how that child has benefited this community that supported and invested in that child. And I thought, you know what, that's something that we need to fix. So what if we invite students to do just what you said, Dr. K? We invite students to, once we know what your genius is, once we know what you're good at, who are you? Are you a STEM person? Are you an art person? Are you a medical care person? Once we know who you are, then what are the local problems of your community, and invite someone from the community to come into the Genius School and do what I call a reverse pitch. Pitch us your problem, and then allow the students to use the very best part of themselves to solve it. But guess what? Start with them little ones. Start with those little itty bitty ones that Glenyce is working with, because young children, a byproduct of childhood, just like a byproduct with bees is natural honey. Bees don't have to work to do it. They just make honey. They don't make honey, they would die. A natural byproduct of childhood is imagination. If they don't use their imagination, they wouldn't be a child. So give the problem of your local community that's in your backyard, give it to those little itty bitties. Give it to those 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds that don't understand limitations. They are walking, living, and breathing innovators, right? Give it to them. Have them solve the problem. I don't care if they're playing with Play-Doh. I don't care if they're playing with their doll babies. Let me see how you would solve this. And then kick it up to the kids who are a little bit older. Okay, this is what the littles said. Now you all take this and make some reality with this. All right. Okay, great. Now kick it up to this age group that you're talking about, 9 to 21. Now you guys actually implement it. Produce a product or a service based upon this reverse pitch that someone from the community came in here to tell us about, that those little itty bitty ones use their unlimited imagination to solve. But now you wrap it in a system known as a business, and you kick that back out to the community. And now we can close the ROI in education, because now you get to see the value of what your 8-year-old has done. We get to see now the value of what your 11-year-old has done, because now we've created an environment where they get to do the very thing that they love, and now they get to serve someone else in doing it. So if you talk about what skills training should we set up to capture kids, kids are already ready to do this. It is simply a matter of creating the system that allows them to do so. That's all.
So I want to add one more thing to what you said, Karima. Then we help the kids set up their LinkedIn profiles, even if they're 9 years old. And every time they do something, every time they're part of a project, whatever, they add it to their LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
I got you one better, Cherie. The
Okay.
app that we have allows these students to self-document themselves, right? And so every time I ingest knowledge, I document it. Every time I output and I serve and create that product or service for someone, I document it. Back that bad boy to some blockchain. And let's not talk about Dr. K's world of
Go
creating.
ahead, Karima.
That's
Come on
right.
now.
Go,
Let's not
girl.
talk about creating a token.
Karima,
that
you need to
allows
do a bet on
children-
Black Pitch. We need
Yes,
this
she
franchise,
does.
and you need
Yes,
a
she
bet on
does.
Black Pitch. Tawana's going to contact you.
Listen.
Okay, come on, let's go. Let's
Yes,
go.
she does.
Listen. And I need Miss Glenise too, because I want to work with a childcare provider like you, who is already creating this for the little ones. Just come on over here to the Genius School, baby. Y'all ain't got to worry about that pipeline. Okay, 'cause we're creating
I know,
something where the
right?
pipeline
Amen.
doesn't exist. All right, where
Amen.
students can earn as you learn, right?
Mhm.
Via this token. And then when you output that bad boy as a business, a product or service, now you get to see the real value of what it is that you're doing. So when parents are running around talking about all they're going to do is play all day, that play is purposeful. Here's the value of it right here. This company here is just willing to play XYZ amount of dollars for your baby's play.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
That's
that's
right.
how we
That's right.
make that happen.
I
And
love it.
yes, go ahead.
So I have a comment about something that Charlene said. Every inner city school should ensure that each student leaves equipped with the know-how of starting a business and having an entrepreneurial spirit. The reason that I wanted to point this out, and she just left it 9 minutes ago, so we've had this entire conversation. I personally believe if we're waiting for the school system to do any of this stuff, we are losing. We're losing. We have seen over the past however many decades that the school system does not want to change in its current form. So my thought is we have the ability now to work outside of the school system as the 10K project, as a group of entrepreneurs and investors. Karima threw the blockchain in there. I wasn't even expecting that. We can have all sorts of things that we do so that when our kids get like 10 years from now, we've invested in these businesses, we get our kids up here, it can do something that's far greater than us begging our schools to have vocational training, in it, and teach them entrepreneurship and add this curriculum and that curriculum. So that was the point that I was trying to make with tonight's session. The other thing is, some of you commented when I asked about the diesel mechanics that you said 0 because there's going to be clean energy. I just want to say, once we teach our kids certain things, they're able to transfer skills as well. So, because if a kid all of a sudden becomes a diesel mechanic and then 10 years, it's phasing out, no problem. They have mechanical skills that they could take to clean energy or take to something else as well. The final thing that I will say is, we haven't mentioned yet any kind of recruiting businesses, but recruiters make big money. Cybersecurity, some of these blue collar positions, they make percentages off of the people that are trained. And there are companies that will take entry level people as well once they're trained. I spoke with the gentleman, it's about a year and a half ago now, who runs a cybersecurity business. Now, it's not his own, but he runs it for, this group of entrepreneurs. These, what they do is they bring people in and they train them up for cybersecurity. They don't charge the people who enter the program, but they're very selective in who they bring in. And then they have Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, all of the big defense industry people that want to bring these professionals in. So this school knows how to train them so that they're like, even though they're entry level, they're up here. The people don't have to pay, but they basically, once they have graduated, they have a guaranteed job at Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, and these big defense companies have like their pick of, the graduates that are, and they're making bank. When I say bank, they are making bank on this. My question is, can we replicate these types of things as well, where we, again, start franchising, start thinking about how do we start creating these systems where we don't have to depend on nonprofits, and we want to have internships, but we also can do things that are profitable. We can monetize, our own labor and profit from our own innovations. So I'm going to open it up to Tawana, because I know you haven't spoken in a while.
Yeah, the answer is yes, yes, and yes. Yes, we can, that's very simple. We can do all of those things. I just want to be careful that we don't repeat some of the bad behavior I think we've done thus far, right? And a lot of the at least for me, my experience in my parenting of a child was always what that expectation was I had for him, right? Everybody wants to be a doctor, everybody want to be a lawyer, so you want your kid to be a doctor and a lawyer. And what I'm hearing here tonight is quite the opposite of that. When Karima said the child is the customer, then that says to me, while we can build these programs, we need to make sure we're tailoring them to that child and what they absolutely love to do. Because what we all know as adults, we're better at things we love to do, right? And sometimes the money doesn't matter as much. There's that part as well. From an investment standpoint, I think we absolutely should start to build these businesses and fund these businesses within our own community so that we can make a profit and ultimately give back and cycle back. That's the ecosystem we talk about here at the 10K Project. So absolutely yes to that. But I want to make sure we don't dig another ditch by saying, this industry is where all the kids should go. Now everybody wants to do this and then they won't be good at it. I'm an HR person by profession, right? So then I get stuck with them because they're not supposed to be at my job. You sent them here because you told them they could make money here, right? But they need to be somewhere drawing something because they're too artistic for the structure we have here, right? They need to be somewhere writing a book because their head is in the cloud all day because they're dreamers and there's a place for them, but it's not here at this job. Right. So we want to make sure we are making sure they do what they should be doing, what they were born to do. I think those were Karima's words. And for me tonight, that was the biggest takeaway. If I could go back 34 years and redo that thing, man, I tell you that parents, if you're listening to this, you need to rewatch this thing 3 times if you're a parent of a child-aged kid, because if I could go back and redo, I would find the money to send my son to that school that was going to do everything Karima just said, but it was a private school and I was a single parent. I didn't have the money, right? Because I got a roll on the floor kind of child too. He can create in his brain that's my kid, right? He's a 10K Project member. He's gonna watch you talking about me. But that's my kid, right? And I'm a structured parent. So our 2 personalities are very, very different. You got somebody who loves structure trying to raise a child who loves freedom. He needed to be in a place to support his freedom, but I couldn't afford it. And so that's the other thing we need to do is we need to figure out where the programs are that are paying for kids to go to these types of schools, and we need to help these parents. We need to absolutely do that. But tonight is powerful.
Well, let me jump in there.
So I want to give Karima a chance to tell us where we can find you.
This conversation has been amazing. You can find me at thegeniusschool.org. You can email me at info@thegeniusschool.org. I'm on Facebook. We are at Instagram, and we're on Clubhouse. Meet me at the club on Clubhouse. And then, so this has been a powerful conversation. I just want to leave you with one thing. Tawana, you said it, from birth. If you look at, I love words. If you didn't know, I'm a wordsmith, right? So I'm constantly looking at the meaning of words. The word genius comes from a Latin word, gignere, which means attending spirit at birth. It means that from the birth of a person, this is already present. And so you are absolutely right. to say that that's who he was from birth. So amazing conversation. I'm so humbled and privileged to join this amazing group of humans on this stage tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Lenise, how do people find you?
Oh, awesome. I have two different handles. So my childcare arm is Smart Steps CC for Smart Steps Children's Centers, smartstepscc.org. Our Instagram and Facebook is also Smart Steps CC. And also for our mental health and substance use recovery agency that supports our kids as well, it's CFYFMD.org. That stands for Center for Youth and Families.org. Our handles on Instagram and Facebook are the same, CFYFMD. I look forward to connecting with you. Please follow us. I will put my email address for both companies in the chat box as well. I just got on Clubhouse, but I don't know what to do yet. So you have to teach me a little something about how to join the club. I just listen. I just want to talk the whole time. Like, can I get on? You know, I like to talk. But I really enjoyed this conversation and all the opportunities that we are creating together, because I'm going to be a member tonight. We are creating together to ensure that we're supporting our community, our young people, and all those that are listening and following. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Dr. Keisha, how can people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Keisha Waddell. I believe it's Keisha Waddell. You just on LinkedIn. Yeah. I'm trying to remember how I had that. But yes, Keisha Waddell on LinkedIn would be just fine.
Perfect. Tawana, we know where to find you tomorrow.
Right here, every Monday night, every Tuesday night at 8 for the Bet on Black Pitch. You want me, you come here and talk to me.
And you know, the point of tonight is not just for us to have a conversation, but for businesses to be created, yes, and for us as a community to be able to support them, fund them, get them off the ground, help them expand, et cetera. So that was, you know, I believe that the way that we tackle this is internally, and we have the power within ourselves to make the changes for future generations. So with that, I want to thank my lovely guests for being here this evening. We are having a second one with new panelists on June 21st. So I'm sure that they will give us different perspectives as well, and we will definitely be able to add on to this. So
before you say goodbye, hold on, Cherie, before you say goodbye, I wanted to thank you because you saw this article and you wanted to talk about it from a different angle. And so thank you for that, because of course the parent in me only saw the one angle at first. And so thank you for always being the visionary that I love about you. And so thank you for bringing that to this community. Tonight's conversation was absolutely wonderful. And I believe the family's going to go away with some new way to think about things and some new solutions as well, which is perfect.
Absolutely. So somebody said that they were in tears tonight. I'm so happy that you were, and I'm so happy that we got to talk about this from a different perspective. All right, everybody, we will see you tomorrow night, 8 p.m. If you love tonight's conversation, definitely be on tomorrow night's Bet on Black Pitch. All right, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
All right, thank you,
everybody.